A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, and the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. It is great to have you with us. On the program here in just a matter of moments, NRA-ILA Executive Director Jason Ouimet is going to be with us. A lot of stuff to talk about because it's been a very busy weekend in terms of our Second Amendment rights during this pandemic. We'll start with what happened on Saturday when the Department of Homeland Security released new guidance on essential workers that now includes the firearms industry, both manufacturers, retailers, as well as distributors, all considered essential parts of the workforce, according to the DHS guidance. Now, this does not automatically mean that every gun store that's been ordered closed by a governor or a sheriff is all of a sudden going to reopen. But at the very least, this is going to be some pretty beefy legal ammunition in the lawsuits that we have seen filed around the country, and hopefully will prompt more authorities to do the right thing and decide with the Constitution in the days and weeks ahead. New Jersey has been one of the places that we have seen the most egregious abuse by government officials. Governor Phil Murphy ordering gun stores closed, the commandant of the New Jersey State Police stopping background checks on firearms. Well, at NJ.com, there is a lawmaker from New Jersey. Of course, the paper notes a GOP lawmaker from New Jersey, Assemblyman Ned Thompson, who is arguing that it is time for New Jersey's gun stores to be allowed to reopen. Now, of course, we've got attorneys and Second Amendment organizations who are arguing the same thing. But Assemblyman Ned Thompson says that New Jersey is the only state bold enough to use a pandemic to stand in the way of the Second Amendment. And he said, liquor stores, medical marijuana dispensaries, bicycle shops, cell phone retailers, office supplies do not have a constitutional defense. If any business can remain open, those pertaining to our rights should be automatically included, not purposely shut down. Thompson says Murphy says he always says he wants to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast. And Thompson says despite California's flaws, such as widespread homelessness, drastic income inequality, and like New Jersey, more people moving out than moving in year after year, most jurisdictions in California respected the fact that it must not violate rights, including the Second Amendment. He notes that more New Jersey residents than ever before are trying to buy a firearm. We have a story at bearingarms.com today. Some towns have seen a 400% increase in the number of people who are applying for a firearms ID card or a pistol purchase permit, which are both required before you can legally purchase a firearm in the state of New Jersey. And at the same time, again, that we're seeing these incredible increases in the number of New Jersey residents who are interested in exercising their constitutional rights, Governor Phil Murphy is simply shutting them down. So we spoke about that and more with NRA-ILA Executive Director Jason Ouimet. Take a look and a listen. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the program, sir. It's good talking to you today.
No, happy to be here, Cam. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wish the subject matter was better, unfortunately, but we're all dealing with this right now. And the good news is I think that we are seeing gun owners, Second Amendment supporters push back now against some of these orders from governors, from Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva and others who are at a time of uncertainty, at a time when more Americans than ever before have discovered, I do have this right to keep and bear arms and I want to exercise it. You've got a growing number of politicians who are trying to stand in their way and prevent them from doing so.
Yep. Yeah, it's sad that that's happening. That's the realization, which is why we filed suit out in California, out in LA. It's why we're looking at potentially filing suit in other areas as well. But to your point, it really is. It's crazy that during the time of pandemic, when people might most need or desire access to a firearm for whatever the purpose, self of defense, self of family, self of home, that it's being restricted. It's being told that your ability to get your self-defense under your Second Amendment right isn't all that important. It's, quote, not essential. Liquor stores, they're essential, but your right of self-defense or to be able to access your right of self-defense, exercise it, not essential. And that just goes to another point that we're seeing here, that when they talk about so-called common sense gun legislation, this is where we're seeing some real flaws in some of that. You take a state like New Jersey that has, quote, universal background check.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they refuse to open up stores and refuse to sell, then transfers also can't occur. So there is no lawful way that you can transfer a firearm now because of this, quote, common sense gun legislation in a place like New Jersey. So these things really are dangerous. These pieces of legislation are dangerous because you can be sure that the criminal is going to go transfer his firearm if he wants to his friend or steal one. He's obviously not going to follow the law. So you seriously hindered law-abiding gun owners looking to exercise the right of self-defense in some of these states.
Absolutely. And Governor Murphy said last week that, he just feels that, a society with fewer guns is a safer society, which to me indicates that he's using this pandemic that we're all in as an excuse to, really let his true colors fly. And again, to deprive people of their right to keep and bear arms. If you got the right to keep, you've got the right to bear, well, then you must have the right to acquire, right?
Sure.
Because how can you keep and bear if you can't get a firearm? And what Governor Murphy has said is that, well, you're out of luck. If you're not already a gun owner in New Jersey, your rights are denied. And, I just... you go back to the Heller case, Jason, back in 2008 when the Supreme Court struck down Washington, D.C.'s ban on handguns. What we are looking at right now in New Jersey is basically a temporary ban, and open-ended. We don't know when this is going to end, but supposedly a temporary ban on the acquisition of firearms. I don't know how on earth that could be constitutional.
We don't see it that way either. I don't see it constitutional in any way, shape, or form. I'm hoping that a lot of these governors are hiding behind this, the guidance, or saying, "Oh, we're following guidance." For example, well, now there's guidance out from the Trump administration, good guidance, saying that these stores ought to be open, that they're considered essential, that they ought to be available for people to access. So it'd be interesting to see if the governor of New Jersey, for example, now decides to follow the guidance when it relates to firearms. If he doesn't, I think it even goes more to your point that this is being used for a gun control effort at this point. Yeah. Although I think that almost anything they use, whether they call it common sense or anything else, is all being directed toward an effort in states like New Jersey, which is really unfortunate.
It is, because, we've seen some anti-gun governors declare the gun stores are essential and can remain open, to their credit. Governor J.B. Pritzker, I don't think I've ever agreed with anything that he's done with firearms until he said, yeah, gun stores can stay open. Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont, Andy Beshear down in Kentucky. So, unfortunately, governors like Phil Murphy, sheriffs like Alex Villanueva, I really do think are putting politics first. I've been pleased to see some governors that, again, I can't remember ever agreeing with them on the Second Amendment, but they have not tried to shut down gun stores, to their credit. And let's talk about that guidance for a second that came out from DHS over the weekend, declaring that gun stores, manufacturers, ammunition manufacturers, distributors, basically the entire firearms industry is considered by the Department of Homeland Security to be a essential critical workforce. Again, this is guidance. This is not a mandate. This won't automatically mean that Governor Phil Murphy is going to reopen gun stores. But I know that this was something that NRA, NSSF, a lot of folks have been reaching out to the Trump administration to talk about and to ask for this guidance. How important is this going forward?
I think it's extremely important. I think it lays down a great precedent, a precedent that all of us believe existed, but a lot of other folks maybe didn't quite believe existed. It was good to hear. It was good to see. I think it's extremely important. You're right. We did. NRA did a lot of work on this. NRA's been really busy during the coronavirus time. If anybody's looking to just get a little bit of a piece to understand what we're doing, we got a website dedicated to this, NRA-ILA.org. /coronavirus. You got an interactive map up there. You can click on your state. You can find out what's going on, all the different alerts that have been done, all the videos that are out there, interviews, the legal options, shows like yours that we're doing, Cam. All of that's out there. Everybody can see everything that we're pushing forward on. That guidance is just another important piece to that very big puzzle.
Absolutely. This is a great resource too, by the way, because it is very difficult keeping up with everything that's going on around the country. And, as gun owners, we're obviously very concerned about what's going on in our own backyard, but it's important also to look at the big picture and to see how this is playing out all across the country. And I got to say as well, Jason, in addition to what you guys are doing with NRA-ILA.org/coronavirus, I've been really pleased and gratified to see the American Rifleman offering up, tips for new gun owners. We have so many Americans right now who are exercising their right to keep and bear arms for the very first time, and they're doing so when it might be difficult to get to a range. It might be difficult to take an NRA basic pistol course or to get your concealed carry instruction. So the resources that we're seeing from folks like American Rifleman, I even saw a story last week about a sheriff who did a live stream gun safety course with the help of the NRA. This, I think, is critically important right now to reach those new gun owners, because what they're hearing from gun control advocates is simply, oh, you're stupid, you made a mistake, you shouldn't own a gun, you shouldn't buy a gun. And look, they're losing that argument. I mean, we've seen, I don't think we've ever seen gun sales as high as they've been over the past couple of weeks. Americans are exercising their Second Amendment rights, but we do want to make sure that they've got the education and the training that they need to do so safely.
Sure, NRA has also always highlighted that and stressed the importance, how paramount safety and training is. And look, nothing really beats live fire. We get it going to the range, but there's a whole slew of different things that you can do that, the Rifleman has out there, that we have out there on the website. The sheriff you're referencing is Sheriff Orwell in Bucks County. Absolutely. We worked with him on that. And NRA instructors and others are doing the same thing. There is a whole lot that you can know, go through, learn, understand, and apply at home right now to be in a good position. And so when you do have the opportunity, when we do come out of this, to take the next step and to go to the range and do the firing. But there's a lot that you can go through, a lot that you can learn, a lot of the safety, a lot of the training, and a lot of training that people do at home on a regular basis doesn't include live fire. It does include dealing with jams in your firearm. It does include understanding and knowing how to properly holster and secure your firearm. A lot of those things do go on in homes every day all throughout America. So yes, the fact that we're able to help people with that and help them feel comfortable with that, and that they're willing to reach out, and anybody who hasn't, we encourage them to. Yes, it's a great resource, and we encourage them to utilize it. That's what we're here for.
Obviously, Jason, the anti-gun folks don't like the NRA in the best of times. They certainly don't like the NRA in the worst of times. One of the responses to one of the videos that you all put out last week was Charlotte Whiting. Is that her name?
Yes, the African American woman who's disabled.
Yeah, I mean, this is an incredible video and really puts a point to why so many Americans want to exercise their Second Amendment rights right now. And I saw some of the responses. I think it was Phil Murphy from Connecticut, or Chris Murphy from Connecticut, saying you guys are fomenting insurrection. You're calling for a civil war. What is your response to the anti-gun folks who? Who make it sound like any American who wants to own a gun for self-defense right now is, ready for, escape from New York, ready for the collapse of society. And that's why they're buying guns.
Sure. The whole thing that we talked about already, using any opportunity or any situation to push gun control is what they're doing. There is no right time for them. There's never going to be a right time. Don't buy one during a time when there's a pandemic going on. And what if law enforcement came down with a whole bunch of coronavirus? What if they were enabled and unable to do their job? That's why people want to have a firearm. So they're saying, don't do it then. Well, if it's a good time, don't buy one then. Everything's good. Well, what if I have to go to the bus stop late at night? What if I'm walking through a parking garage late at night on my own and I want to be able to protect myself? There's never a good time for them in any way to ever own a firearm. And for us, look, you have a Second Amendment. You have a fundamental God-given right to self-defense and to own that firearm. And we're happy to support folks that can do that. Senators like Chris Murphy, like I said, there's never going to be a good time. They're always going to go after us. They're always going to go after law-abiding folks. We only represent law-abiding gun owners. We don't represent criminals. We're happy to see criminals get tossed in jail for criminal acts. But we're talking about law-abiding folks, and those folks will be able to own a firearm for self-defense. And the firearm matters, and different types of firearms that they want to ban. You talk about the woman in the video. She specifically chooses that firearm for the 3 points of contact that exist for her and where she's best able to use that firearm. For somebody, it may be a smaller handgun. For somebody, it may be a larger handgun. There's all different kinds of guns because everybody fits everything a little bit differently, and you shouldn't restrict somebody's choice on that either.
Absolutely. All right, last question for you. I'm going to ask you to think big picture here. How do you think this will change the gun control debate? If you're able to peer into your crystal ball and look a year from now, how do you think this experience that every American is going through right now is going to change the debate over our right to keep and bear arms?
I think a lot of people who said, I don't think I'll ever own a gun. I don't pay attention to the issue. I don't know a whole lot about the issue, but it's never an area that I've focused on or that's concerned me. Now sees it brought to light. Some of them who've never thought that have gone and tried to buy one. Some of them have had a good experience, which is a good thing, but a lot have also had a bad experience or unable to have an experience in a place like New Jersey. And I think that will bring them into the fold. I think more of these people will say, I just wanted to be able to go out and buy a firearm for self-defense, and I wasn't able to do so. So all this talk about go through a background check, it's real quick, just get it here, and it's all said and done. All of a sudden, I couldn't get one at a store. Or I waited online for forever, and then one wasn't available to me. I couldn't get one from my neighbor. They weren't allowed to transfer one or to lend me one in this time. And I think you're going to have a lot of people who weren't part of this environment or part of this cause or understanding of the Second Amendment start to come into the fold. And I think it's a good thing. I think the more people that understand what the Second Amendment really is about, the better America will be for it.
Jason Ouimet, NRA-ILA Executive Director, thanks so much for coming on the program today, sir. It's good talking with you.
Thanks, Kim. My pleasure. I'm always happy to do it. I appreciate everything that you do as well.
All right. Before we get to our armed citizen story, our recidivist report, our good deed of the day, I do want to get to some of your emails. My email address, by the way, cam.edwards@variedarms.com. I know you've got a lot of questions, concerns. Maybe you've got a local story that I haven't written about that you think I should know about. Feel free to drop me an email. We've heard from a lot of great folks around the country, including let's see. Well, I'm going to start with Stephen in New Jersey, since we've been talking a lot about New Jersey on the show. Stephen says there should be punitive damages for what the New Jersey governor's done, though that would only hurt honest, hardworking taxpayers, making them primarily both the plaintiff and the defendant. This is extremely frustrating, says Stephen. What happens after the state's required to allow gun stores to open back up and NICS checks to resume? Setting a precedent is not enough when the Constitution is blatantly violated by the government. I myself was in the middle of 2 NICS checks for firearms that I had already purchased when the governor shut it down. Thanks, says Stephen, and love your show. Stephen, listen, first of all, what I would recommend you do is contact the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs or the New Jersey Second Amendment Society. Contact Second Amendment Foundation. And if you need help with those contacts, send me another email. I'll be happy to help you get in touch with those folks because they need to hear from people like you. You very well could be a party to these lawsuits. Because, again, as you point out, you had already purchased your firearms. Now you can't get them because of the actions of the governor. Now, one of the things that we talked about with Scott Bach, the executive director of the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs last week, is the fact that, yes, they are going after Governor Phil Murphy personally here. So there is probably not a great chance, but there is a chance that there will be some financial repercussions for Governor Murphy. And it won't be borne out by the taxpayers outside of, him having to use his salary. Well, I guess he's a billionaire, right? Or at least a multimillionaire. So, his bottom line may actually be impacted. But I agree with you that, ultimately when the dust settles here, in New Jersey in particular, there's going to have to be a reckoning with what was done. And I know that Governor Phil Murphy is proud of the fact that he is trying to stand in the way between New Jersey residents and their Second Amendment rights. But, as we heard from Jason Ouimet a few minutes ago, and I agree, I think on the other side of this, there are going to be a lot of Americans with a newfound appreciation for their Second Amendment rights and a righteous anger over the deprivation of those rights during this state of emergency. Dennis writing in from Virginia, rather, says, I live out in Bedford. He says, twice in the past few weeks, I've been to Roanoke on Highway 460. I passed several gun stores, and even I was shocked at the amount of people or cars in the parking lots. One store near the Roanoke Civic Center, Doomsday Tactical, great name, blew me away, says Dennis. You couldn't fit another car in the parking lot. The cars were parked up the side street. Cars were lined up in the street with their turn signals on, waiting to get in. Yeah, and this is in Virginia, where, again, you'd think everybody who wanted a gun would have already bought a gun. If not, in years past, when we saw the gun control bills introduced, dozens of them introduced in Virginia's legislative session, going back to last November, that did prompt a surge in gun sales in Virginia. Gun stores were already busy. They were selling suppressors like nobody's business. They were selling ARs, particularly when House Bill 961 was still a live bill. So we've already seen one surge in Virginia gun sales going back to late 2019. But this is really, if that was a surge, this is a tsunami. I've talked with a couple of friends who work at gun stores here locally in the area in Farmville, and they can't keep items on the shelf. They are now limiting ammunition to, I think it's 2 boxes a person. So that if somebody comes in and buys a gun for the first time, they can give them a box, or they can sell them a box of ammo to go with that firearm. Because otherwise, common calibers like 9mm would just be out. Although, oddly enough, my friend who works at the gun store, Ayers Farmville Sporting Goods, said they've got plenty of 45 in stock. I don't know. Who would have guessed? Also have an email from Hawaii. Don't know the name here, but he says, as I'm sure you know, Hawaii is one of the most anti-gun states in the country. And surprisingly, Governor Ig has, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, probably not, has declared firearms and ammunition retailers as essential for the safety and security of the people. Of course, this could change, but for now, hats off to our governor. And that is, that is a big deal. Like we talked about with Jason Ouimet, there have been a number of anti-gun governors who have done the right thing here. Whether it's the governor of Hawaii, the governor of Illinois, governor of Connecticut. In fact, if you go to that NRA-ILA site that Jason mentioned, nraila.org/coronavirus, there is a great map. And it's basically red, yellow, green, right? The red states are the states that have stopped gun sales. The yellow states are the states where it kind of varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And the green states are the states where, so far anyway, they have been allowed, I don't even like saying that they've been allowed to remain open. The green states are the states where the governors haven't ordered gun stores to close. Let's put it that way. And the vast majority of the country is green. And it's Hawaii, but it's also Oregon, Illinois, as I mentioned, Louisiana, trying to think of other Democrat-controlled states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, not Michigan, not New York, not New Mexico. I know, we're going to have to get our friend, the sheriff out there in New Mexico to come back on the program and talk about what's going on, Cibola County Sheriff Tony Mace. But, for the most part, around the country, what we have seen, our governors do the right thing. Now, what are the reasons for that? I couldn't tell you. It may be that a few of these governors have had a change of heart, but I don't think so. I think that for most of these governors, to try to shut down gun stores right now would add to the panic, would add to the fear that their residents have, and rightfully so. And so I think it's been more than anything a political calculation, or a calculation in terms of, well, we don't want to freak people out, so we'll keep the gun stores open. Again, I think it's the right move to make. I would prefer that it be made because of the constitutional implications of closing them. But, the political agenda, I guess if it's coming down in our favor, we'll go ahead and take it. All right, let's get to today's Armed Citizen story, our recidivist report, our good deed of the day. First, our recidivist report from Massachusetts, where a Brockton man, already on parole for a shooting 6 years ago, has been arrested on new firearm charges. Yeah, how about that? From the Enterprise News in Massachusetts, 26-year-old Adam McNeil, arrested last Friday, charged with illegal possession of a firearm for a second offense, along with other charges, including possession of an illegal feeding device for the firearm as well. It was Massachusetts State Police responding to an intersection in Brockton, Massachusetts, after hearing Brockton police dispatch cruisers for a shooting incident. About 15 minutes later, troopers saw a dark-colored sedan parked in front of a no parking anytime sign in front of a closed business. God love the dumb criminals. According to a statement from police, the sedan was running with its lights on. The sedan did not have any registration plates attached. So they made contact with the driver, Adam McNeil. State police investigated, said they found a loaded Glock with a extended magazine, 15 rounds, which is illegal in Massachusetts, had 11 rounds in the magazine. According to the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, more than 5 years ago, Adam McNeil was charged with 2 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, 2 counts of carrying a loaded firearm without a license, 4 counts of unlawfully possessing a firearm or ammunition as a career criminal in connection with a shooting that left 2 men injured in Worcester. Police and prosecutors at the time said this was a retaliation for a fatal shooting of a 19-year-old that took place 3 days earlier in a Worcester apartment complex. In February of 2016, so more than 4 years ago, Worcester Superior Court Judge Shannon Friesen sentenced McNeil to 7 concurrent terms of 4 to 5 years in the Walpole State Prison after he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of carrying a firearm without a license, 4 counts of firearm violation with 1 prior violent or drug crime, which was a plea bargain. 4 to 5 years, which means probably 2.5 to 4 years. And after that prison sentence, placed on 2 concurrent terms of 2 years of probation. Just 2 years of probation. By the way, it sounds like this guy, the career criminal enhancement charges that were dropped, sounds like this guy was already a convicted felon. So I'm not sure why he wasn't never charged with felon in possession of a firearm. If that case had been referred to a federal court, McNeil would have been looking at 10 years behind bars, not 2.5 to 4. And he would not have been arrested over the weekend because he would have still been in federal prison. All right, let's get to today's armed citizen story. This from the Joplin Globe, Stark City, Missouri, where a 36-year-old man wounded after he attacked somebody with a machete. Yeah, you'd think the headline might mention machete, but no. Shooting in Newton County deemed self-defense from the Joplin Globe. The details of this case, pretty crazy. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jennings said deputies responded to a report of a domestic disturbance and found 36-year-old Cody Bowman with gunshot wounds, 23-year-old Joseph Ward with an injury from having been struck in the head with a machete. Yeah, Bowman taken to Joplin Hospital for treatment of his injuries. Assault charges were filed on him on Friday, and once he gets out of the hospital, the sheriff says he will go to jail. Charged with first-degree assault, first-degree burglary, 2 counts of armed criminal action. The sheriff, according to a probable cause affidavit filed with the charges, was in the yard of the residence running water from a garden hose over gunshot wounds to his arm and hand when deputies actually showed up. He told deputies he'd been shot 4 times. Deputies located 2 bullet wounds on him. Occupants of the residence told deputies that Bowman was not supposed to be in the house, but that he broke some glass in a door trying to get in. That's when the 23-year-old went outside, told Bowman to leave, and Bowman then threw a machete that struck Ward in the head. Ward then retrieved a .22 caliber rifle, shot Bowman twice as Bowman was coming at him with a bar that he had picked up in the driveway. Affidavit says that deputies found a machete in the home. Residents said they had taken the machete for safekeeping so that Bowman couldn't use it again. Bowman still had a large knife on his person when deputies first arrived. He was told to toss it on the ground. According to the affidavit, Bowman lives nearby. He told the deputy in January he was no longer allowed at the residence where Ward and one of Bowman's adopted siblings live. But for whatever reason, he decided to show up there anyway. Now, again, he's in the hospital, soon to be headed to jail. And the 23-year-old who shot Bowman in self-defense not facing any charges. Today's good deed of the day from WSMV in, I believe this is Nashville. Is that correct? Yes, Nashville, Tennessee, where an off-duty officer in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, ended up saving the life of a person who was having a mental health crisis on a bridge there. News Channel 4 says Officer Jordan Brown was off duty when he ran across the individual riding motorcycles with his dad Friday afternoon. He saw a woman standing in the middle of the bridge, grabbing the guardrail and looking over the edge. He pulled over, reportedly spoke with the woman for quite a while, found out that she was contemplating suicide, and then persuaded her to walk away with him. Chief James Hambrook says Jordan graduated the police academy this week, and he is already a shining example of the work that police officers do to save lives. I'm grateful that he was placed in that moment so he could intervene to help a fellow human being in distress. According to WSMV, deputy responded to the scene from the Williamson County Sheriff's Office and ensured that the woman received further care for her well-being. So in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing, Mount Juliet, Tennessee police officer Jordan Brown, we thank you, sir, for your very good deed. And I know that this is a tough time for pretty much everybody, right? I will tell you, I woke up this morning with just, it was like an alarm clock of dread that woke me up. I didn't have my alarm set or anything. I just woke up with this pit in my stomach. And I got over it because I'm just an annoyingly optimistic person. But for a few minutes, it was tough. So I know that this is hard for a lot of people. Please know that you're not alone. Please know that there are people out there who care about you. And if you are struggling, if you are having trouble, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. And if you need that number, use it, please. Okay? The world is a better place with you in it. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Thank you for being a part of the program today. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. Don't forget, you can subscribe to, what would that be? Town Hall Media at YouTube. Also, you can subscribe to Bearing Arms Cam and Company at Apple Podcasts. You can become a VIP member of Bearing Arms at bearingarms.com. We certainly do appreciate your support. We're going to be doing another VIP Gold Editors Chat at some point this week, and we'll give you more details on that. But thanks for being a part of the program today. Be safe, be well, be free, and we'll talk to you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company.